Imagine More.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. So we've missed last week. Me and Seth both got tied up into some things, and so we've decided today we're going to do an extended session, one of our longest um, sessions. Go past that hour mark that we normally stop at, and talk about more topics. To kind of squeeze in for 2 weeks. So we do have a lot of topics to go over. We have like two weeks worth of topics, and yeah, it's crazy. I know
I don't
Seth
even
has
remember what we talked about last time.
it was the world going crazy like always. We have guests coming on today to be helping us out, which is going to be awesome. They have some very great insight from the Pirate Party. You guys don't know what that is? You're going to find out today. And we also have some topics, some technology topics like Chat GPT and the dangers of work, it taking away some jobs. And we're going to have topics talking about other cool things. When I personally find fascinating, the bank bailouts and why we're still doing that. And I know Seth's going to really chime in on that. And then we're going to go over the lawsuit of Disney and DeSantis, which I thought was, as me as a lawyer, pretty interesting. So we have a lot to talk about today. It's going to be, and I'm just talking about the topics that I thought I brought to the table. Seth has a whole bunch of topics he wants to bring to the table too. So we're gonna not waste any time. We're going to dive deep. Um, and when our guest gets here, we'll pause from the topic. We'll bring them on, and then we'll start that conversation from there. And then we'll go back and finish up our topics. So, guys, one of the first topics that I thought was really important is the Chat GPT. When I was in the campaign trail, it was I always talked about jobs and jobs being replaced. Right now, if you go to Walmart, there used to be like a whole bunch of tellers. Now there's like two, and they're like pointing you to like eight machines that you could check yourself out on. And same thing with McDonald's right now. If you guys ever go to McDonald's inside, they don't even have someone in the restaurant inside anymore. Everything's a touchscreen. So we've been dealing with technology replacing a lot of jobs for a very, very long time. But this year, it's gotten even more and more scarier. Now, I know if you guys heard about this, and if you haven't heard about it, I'm going to tell you what it is now. It's called Chat GPT. It's a new technology platform that essentially allows, it's like an artificial intelligence. So imagine your Siri, which is not that smart, um,
A smarter version of Siri.
a smarter version of Siri, Echo, and all that. That you can just tell it what to do, and and it does it for you. It's kind of a game changer, honestly. I mean, some things about it, the Chat GPT, but I didn't believe, but apparently it ended up being true. Was it passed the MCAT? It passed the bar exam. It passed the hardest test of all the tests you can possibly have. It's passed the SATs, the ACTs. It did everything, and it literally was now. That's not the unique thing about it. It started writing people essays, and professors couldn't even tell what was plagiarism or not. That's how good the essays were. Um,
So it is verified intelligent.
it's very, very smart. Even me, like I would look up some things that are illegal that I know a normal person wouldn't know how to do. I type it in, and it's like, oh, here's the answer.
So it's a real resource, huh?
Yeah, so it literally is like, and this is like this is like I think this is like the third or fourth version of it. There's apparently more versions coming out. It's supposed to be smarter, and I, you hear my fascination about it. It's just because how many jobs would this thing replace? I mean, I know it's never going to replace like lawyers. People always say, they're like, "Oh, it's
Well,
going
I
to
mean,
replace
you
lawyers."
just implied it's going to replace lawyers, right? Because if it can pass the bar and it can answer your legal questions, then why do we need
Yeah,
Jesse?
it's a good point. So here's the limitations of the software.
Yeah.
so let's talk about the limitations of it. So the reason why I said we'll never replace lawyers or doctors or anything like that is because it's still an informational thing. So
Yeah.
if I know the information, I know it's right, but you don't know if the information's right. you know. And so because you're not a lawyer, you're not a doctor, you wouldn't have the understanding like, oh, this is right. This is a it's a because it has been wrong too. Like I've asked it to
Hmm.
do case law of a certain topic that I was working on one of my clients, and it was wrong. I had to go back and find it myself.
Damn,
So it's
AI's got
not,
to study up.
yeah, it's not a perfect system, but it's a very good system. It's like 90, 95% accurate. The 5 or 10% that's inaccurate is just like little nuanced stuff that a human would need to know because it's more of a not really a actual knowledge question, but
Like
more of
opinion.
an emotional kind of thing. Like, all right, in front of this judge, what argument will work the best?
Yeah,
And that's not really something well, not yet. That's not something that software can do. It just puts out information that you put into it. Um, but I do see replacing like a lot of working class jobs, jobs that does not require uh, um, a human element. Um, and we've seen this gone on very long in manufacturing, where AI robots were taking over a lot of the manufacturing jobs. I see this in even a more wider scale, like replacing certain teachers, cutting back teacher workforce, cutting back things that require information, in that this technology can essentially it can essentially create information that not everyone would know in a very, very fast rate. So I can see it replacing a lot of teachers. I see it replacing a lot of just a lot of software or things that require human touch. I was saying this the other day, like it will replace a lot of. I said it won't replace lawyers, but it will replace a lot of lawyers.
yeah.
It'll replace lawyers that who are not really, because I mean, and this is a little background of the legal world. Not every lawyer is the same. Obviously, we know this. Um, Certain lawyers are, they rubber stamp a lot of stuff. They have a partner that's in charge of them, and they write a lot of the information that the partner has already developed and researched and understands, and they just copy it. And so, if this chat GTP comes in place, well, guess what? You don't need someone to do that. You can just tell the system to write these many copies for these many clients, and it does it. And so that's where it replaces people. So it's just, I see it replacing a lot of jobs that doesn't really require ideas and thinking, and just more of a task related jobs. That's the best way to say it. It's going to replace.
I think what you said about it replacing like teachers is interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, education is already moving like online to a certain degree, and I think part of the reason the cost of education is so much is because I mean, they're trying to reduce the sizes of classes, so you have
Hmm.
more teachers and you have more specialization and more one-on-one learning. But
Yeah,
what's more individualized and like a personal AI to teach you about something, and how and
yeah,
that would reduce the cost of education. That would increase education across the board for people if everyone could have more access to information and not have to get it through a paywall, find some specifically knowledgeable person, I think
yeah.
we would probably be better off. That's the thing about AIs. It's going to improve things dramatically in a lot of ways, but we have to replace it with something. We have to replace the the way we run our economy because it can't just be based on everybody having a good, well-paying job because there's not a market for that.
No, not anymore. I mean, now it's going to drive I call it the loneliness factor up by 10, because we're not going to interact as much. Everyone's going to be there. The AI is going to tell us how to do things. We're not going to be required to do the engagement of people anymore. And it's kind of
Yeah,
scary a little bit. I mean, I just think of it like another example would be like, let's say you got a troubleshooting error. Normally, you would like call the tech support guy. You stay there for 24, like almost 10 hours on the phone waiting for him. But imagine this chat thing. You're just like, well, my cable box is not working, and it's put in a chat, and it's like, okay, we'll reboot your whole entire system. And they can do that now as a cable company, but you wouldn't have to call in.
yeah,
So these are things that these are replacing jobs, And I don't think a lot of people realize that this was AI, this new wave. I can just imagine this is like the second version of this thing, or the third version. But I think I've read reports that by the end of this year, they're gonna have a version of it. Now, this is just a rumor. This version of this Chat GTP thing, but apparently, this rumor is that it's gonna be able to think for itself.
Oh,
Yeah. So
wow.
Elon Musk talked about this for a little bit, and I thought it was a little interesting that he would talk about it. But it's true. Like, matter of fact, I think it's even capable now of doing that, but they're not saying it. But there's a rumor that now the AIs are starting to think to themselves and develop this ability to understand reason and stuff like that.
I keep seeing videos of robots that are like normal, like sci-fi like their movements, and they're gonna be
Yeah,
doing like delivering Amazon packages and stuff like that. Just wait till they put that
yeah,
self thought into the robot. Then we have like dystopian movie.
yeah. Right.
The
Something like,
robots are like, you know what? We won't be enslaved to you. We didn't demand equal respect and justice, and they take us over because they're made of metal.
yeah, like an iRobot.
I was literally thinking that movie.
Yeah, I was thinking of the movie
I
too.
was
Like,
gonna ask if you knew it.
when I was thinking
It's,
about the topic, I was like, man, I'm so iRobotish.
yeah, that was.
So
I mean, that's what I was like picturing when I was describing it. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a good movie because like I was like thinking, I was like, man, is this really what Will Smith warned us about?
yeah, I
You
don't think
know,
Will Smith warned us. He was just in it. I don't think he wrote it, but Will Smith is
well,
like, I have a vision.
I have a
The people must know.
yes, Will Smith. Oh man, well, we're not going there. I thought
Yeah,
about something, but I'm not going there. um, so yeah, so that's Chat GPT. I thought it was something that we should have talked about because it does affect us politically too. Because
yeah.
politicians, we get in the job to employ people, to give people the opportunity to work and to provide for their families. And when there's technology that's out there that could potentially threaten that, we have to find other ways to combat this technology. We saw the scare of the Industrial Revolution. We saw the scare of technology revolution in the 2000s. Now we have this new AI revolution that's happening. And what's going to happen? You see the manufacturing died in America, and you see industries die. So, like Seth said to me earlier before we got on, that us humans, we adapt. And one of the things that I think helps adapt is understanding where it's going, so that we are able to adapt. And so that's why I thought this topic was interesting because we're all about talking about things that um, we want a solution for future problems. And I think that's something that we should really be. We'll talk about it some more going forward as the technology develops. But that's something that I'm really trying to get a grasp of what political solutions we can have for this growing technology of AI.
Hey, so
Yeah, yeah.
Anthony is still going to be coming on, but Justice is coming
Hmm.
on too. He
Okay,
has some time. Yeah, I know. He said he wasn't going to be able to make it, but he'll be able to come on for a little bit, and then we can have it's like the whole crew. Not quite, but
sure. I like it.
yeah. So he might be on in a second.
Well, as we wait on for him, let's move on to my second topic. I thought was pretty cool this
I don't know
week.
when we should watch the video. Maybe it'd be fun to have all of us on it. I don't know.
Do you want? Well, I'll let you play that. I was going to talk about the bank bailout.
Oh,
Um,
go for it. Yeah, because I don't
yeah,
actually have a lot of information on that one. So
yeah. So if you guys didn't know, First Republic, it was bought up by Chase, which is very interesting. I thought there were going to be a government bailout, but apparently it wasn't. It just did through Chase, which is just as big as the government, to bail out this lower bank. And so I I don't get into market speculations, and that's not really what I do. But I can see that there is a problem, obviously, with the banks, and I think it's in their ability to write loans because we're in a new technology. We're in a new phase. I think COVID rewrote, workers' rights in America. Um, did it subconsciously. It really didn't do it consciously, but Most workers now do not. Most workers are never going back to work 40 hours a week at a job in a location spot. Most people are going hybrid. Like that's just the way of the market now, and no one's really going to take you seriously as an employer if you don't offer hybrid. So the market's changed. Workers' rights has come back, which is awesome for progressives because that's what we're looking for. But in that market change that we're looking at, um, banks did write loans, a lot of them, to commercial buildings and office spaces and big towers that you see in downtown and all these different buildings. They all have loans on them. There's very few buildings that actually, it's been written off. So with that, all these loans have been written by these banks for these commercial spaces. No one's renting them. Clearly, because businesses are moving to a hybrid model, they don't need as much space. They don't need to spend $10,000 a month to house 500 employees when only 50 are going to show up. So a lot of them are scaling down to smaller office spaces, and it's hurting the banks because guess what? Now people are defaulting on their loans and they're having loan issues because the reality is there's just not that many people willing to get in commercial leases and sign big loans anymore. So what is happening is the smaller banks are failing because banks. Here's something that a little secret that rich people don't really tell people, but it's really what they do. It's a secret. Rich people do regional banking. That's because regional banking gives them the best interest rates. Usually, when a rich person wants to get a loan, he doesn't get a loan from a big bank like J.P. Morgan or whatever, Bank of America. If he gets a loan, he goes to mom and pop county bank and says, "Hey, I'm rich. This is my credit. Give me a $10 million loan." And the bank gives him that. So most rich loans are tied up into these regional banks, um, because they know they have an advantage with smaller banks because they get better interest rates and they get more loan amount, and that's a little secret from the rich. So when you're seeing all these regional banks failing, it's really that there's a lot of these loans are coming due, and these people who got these enormous loan rates can't really pay them, and so the banks now are, you know, and let me not assume here, but for people who don't know how banks make money, they make money off of interest rates. That's the only. I mean, Seth has talked about this for weeks, but our money really has no value. It really is just a matter of what we believe in that money. So if we believe this dollar is worth a dollar, then it's worth a dollar. The bank's whole premise is I give you a dollar so that you can give me back $2, and that's how I make money. And so they're in the business of writing loans. So when banks can't write loans and they can't get back the loans that was already written out, they go bankrupt. And so that's why you see all these regional banks failing, and you see these big banks coming in to try to save them. And it's not that these big banks like J.P. Morgan, Chase is like, oh, I want to save this small little bank because I'm just doing my American duty. It's not about that. They're saving these banks because at the end of the day, like I told you, most rich people are in regional banks and they have more assets in regional banks. And so they're going to acquire the bank so they can acquire the rich person's assets. So it's all money. It's not has nothing to do with, just being a savior. It's really all about money. And so I say that this is an important topic for us as progressives to realize, like, the way that the economy has been working, it's not going to work anymore. And it goes back to my, I guess, my rhetoric on the AI and the fear that it's going to overtake a lot of American jobs. Well, imagine now you have this AI technology coming in, you have this hybrid work coming in, and they're coming together and they're going to intersect at some point. And when they do intersect, what does that economy look like? And that's as progressive. That's what we need to focus on. What does the new economy looks like so we can come up with solutions for the new economy? Because I guarantee you, the people that are in power right now, they have no idea. I know for a fact they have no idea how to create policies for this new economy. They were based. A lot of our politicians are paid. They're either baby boomers or they were born in like when manufacturing was king.
And they were
That's
born right after the Great. depression. So
The
it's
Great
like
Depression.
everybody has so much like fear, and it's all about like security and stuff like that, and they're not really gonna do a lot of reform.
Exactly. They don't understand to live. I always tell people, if you want to know the politician, the best way to show who a politician is to go back on YouTube, Google Mark Zuckerberg testifying in front of Congress. And literally, I forgot what congressman it was. I knew it was a Republican, but I don't remember his name. He asked Mark Zuckerberg, he's like, how do you make money? Any 18-year-old or 15-year-old kid can tell you how Facebook makes money. It's through ads.
Yeah.
But this politician, who was a politician who knew for weeks that Mark Zuckerberg was coming, the smartest question that came out of his mouth was, how do you make money? So imagine if they don't even understand how Facebook makes money, how do you think they're going to be able to create policies that address AI and that address hybrid working and address those issues? They don't. So I think this is a great opportunity for progressives to create an economic policy that really address these things like UBI. Like universal basic income does provide that ability to now have us a transition force to new work skills, to new work that's going to help us in the 20 in this century. I mean, like I always talked about the new wars with China is cyber defense and cyber warfare. These are the things that we need to start training the next generation on, and we need to start focusing on to be a more technology centered economy and stop trying to be an economy that's based on manufacturing. Because at the end of the day, we're never going to be able to compete with China or India. There's 2 billion, I forget the last number. I think there's 3 billion people, and that's manufacturing
In
jobs.
China?
No, China and India I'm
Oh, okay.
combining.
Did you know India is the largest country in the world now?
Yeah, it's like
They
1.6.
surpassed China the other day.
They're like 1.6 billion, something like that.
Yeah, it's around there. But yeah, 3 billion between them or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like three.
uh, I've been thinking about UBI a lot more recently too. Like I feel like I was always in support of it, but I kind of let it go for a while because it's more focused on workplace management and democracy stuff like that. But I don't know. You're definitely right. The AI thing is bringing me right back where it's like there's not really anything to avoid it. We can't just have a society that's you know the money is solely based on having a job. We need to have that program that guarantees a certain level of income because we can't just have people. I live in around Oakland and San Francisco. I have seen it. It is so much more, just as real, maybe worse than you would imagine. Like
Yeah,
everywhere, there's so many homeless people just wandering, asleep, passed out on the streets. Like they are suffering, and like it is such an easy fix. But
yeah,
like we spend so much money on administrative costs. Like, hey, let's have a think tank and spend millions of dollars bringing in the greatest minds, and we'll think of how are we going to solve homelessness? How shall we do this? And
yeah,
they keep doing this, and nothing's changed because they're just paying a bunch of rich assholes to have a circle jerk or something like that instead of just giving money directly to people like in the
yeah,
streets. And it can't just be like you can't just rely on charity. You give one person some money, like what is that going to do? How do you know that they're going to spend it in the right ways that's going to get them out of what you need is security. You need a guaranteed income. Like it's gonna come back, you're gonna have more money, you can spend it on how you if you want to spend it on a bunch of dumb shit at first, you can do that, but like eventually you're gonna have to pay for real stuff, and the money's gonna keep coming in, and you're gonna be able to pay off your bills, you're gonna be able to advance yourself in life, go back to school, get an apartment, be a contributor to society. Like
yeah,
you have to give people their own freedom to do what they want to do. It's like the same idea with drug legalization. We've seen where it works in the world, and that's in Portugal. Everybody always references Portugal because they figured out how to do it. If you just decriminalize, legalize, even the hard drugs, like there's no reason somebody who's addicted to heroin should be locked up for that. That makes no sense.
yeah,
Why are we going to spend all of a sudden $56,000 a year to keep someone incarcerated just because they did something that it's a disease, they're addicted to something? That's obviously a very addictive chemical. It's not like they have a lot of willpower or choice to
Exactly.
alleviate themselves from that situation. No, what you have to do is you have to give them security. You have to give them, I mean, sorry, I'm trying to decide whether or not to divulge into a different topic out of nowhere. I'm
No,
using
but
my
feel
ADHD
free,
brain,
man. Just keep
but
going.
like the another problem with homelessness is like all the homeless shelters drug test and stuff like that. So okay, all these people that are stuck in the streets because of their major drug addictions now you have to like force them to get off of the hardest drug in the world to get off of to sleep for one night. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. That's not very humanitarian. Yeah, I know you're trying to fix the problem, but that's not how you do it. You don't force people to go cold turkey on something like that. You have to slowly allow them to administer something safely. You give them security, you give them a job opportunity, you give them a way to improve their own life, and once everything else in somebody's life improves, that is when it's easiest to wean off or get off of drugs. It's not going to be while you're on the streets. Nobody's going to be able to just get off of drugs on the street because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you need to have something to work for. You need to have something to work towards. You need to have that security of like things that give you meaning and happiness. Otherwise, that's the reason they fall to having to do drugs anyways.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense why we are taking such a hard stance against it. Trump is talking about murdering drug dealers and like it's all just fear mongering. It's such an issue, and I don't know. I, I I
No,
I
I
definitely skipped something, but it's okay.
no, I agree with you, man. It's a growing issue. Like for me, when I see that we're trying to regulate drugs in 2023, it's like, man, I think the science is out there. There's no way to imprison. You can't imprison an addiction.
No.
What you can do is create a mindset, though. And and let me explain a little bit.
Hey Jesse,
Yeah.
we got Justus on air. He doesn't have a camera,
Okay.
but he will be able to talk. Welcome,
How's
Sure.
it going?
Justus. How's
Can
it
you
going,
hear
Hey,
me
buddy?
what's
okay?
going on, Justice?
How's it going? Good to be with you guys.
Glad you
Awesome.
could make it.
Yeah. Well, Justice, thanks for coming on to the show. I mean, I know Seth has been trying to secure you for a while, from what he tells me, and we're glad that you had some moment to chat with us tonight. I'm going to let you do a little intro so the
We
people
brought
get
him on
to.
just after we finished the drug legalization part. Damn,
Yeah.
you missed out, buddy.
Yeah.
He
Well,
lives in
what's your.
Oregon where they
Yeah,
have it all
I was
fucking.
enjoying the legalization talk. That's always great to hear.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, my name's Justus. I'm on Twitter as Justus. I
Yeah, guys, follow
am
Justice.
not
I
working in
am.
politics currently, but I always enjoy talking about politics and social issues.
What is your political stance, Justice? How would you just self-describe your political philosophy?
I would say I'm a left-wing market anarchist, specifically becoming a lot more interested in agorism.
Oh, agorism. Interesting. I
Yeah, explain
didn't
that a
mean to
little bit.
copy you, but
Yeah, so agorism is a newer libertarian theory developed by someone named Samuel Edward Konkin III. Really interesting guy. Basically advocated anarchism through specifically libertarian means, so meaning no involvement with politics or trying to work it within the state, just specifically trying to build underground economies, mutual aid societies, and things outside the states to eventually be able to replace the state and make it obsolete.
and
So, who will govern? Who will govern who in that system?
I mean, the goal is for no one to govern anyone.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm
I
not
always
totally sure
Well,
how to answer that.
Do you have an example of like society that's moving towards that direction, or is this just an idea that um, that's based on theory?
I mean, you could say it's based on theory in a lot of ways, but in
Uh,
many ways, America is also moving towards that direction. Parts of America, anyway. We're
yeah,
seeing an increase in uh, networks and technologies outside the state and things that uh, are even more importantly outside of the reach of the state, meaning
yeah,
they can't really be regulated or extinguished or conquered by any government. So I'm thinking of things like cryptocurrency and blockchain
yep,
technology that can work outside of central banking in theory. We might not be at that point yet. Um, Things like 3D printed guns, making gun control policy obsolete rather than trying to vote on it. Um, and even just on a more local scale, things like what Carl Hess talks about, just building community technology, community aid networks, um, just things that make your life not revolve around the government or be too dependent on or restricted by any government policy.
I have a question.
Yes,
So you would consider yourself an anti-capitalist, right?
I would consider myself an anti-capitalist.
How would
Um,
you prevent the capitalism from just becoming an anarcho-capitalist society?
well, one thing that I would say differentiates me from anarcho-capitalists is I don't believe that basically things would go the way they want to. We wouldn't see the same kind of centralized corporations and hierarchical firms that exist in the state capitalist economy that we have now.
Why do you say that? Can't
Um,
corporations, aren't they already in like controlling everything? So like, wouldn't we need to get to a certain place where there is some sort of equal opportunity or competition before you could abolish the state? Because it's already in a situation where we need the state from preventing these giant corporations from controlling more. That's what I'm curious.
Well, I think in some ways that's a misdiagnosis of the problem. If you think about what corporations are, they aren't simply just like voluntary associations of people. They're literally creations of the state, and they're granted limited liability, given so many regulatory advantages through um, captured regulations, and just the world that we see, the amount of corporate power that exists in the world today is it's not prevented by the state, it's enabled by the state. And for
I agree.
mhm.
But do you think that just reducing the special privileges would just cause these corporations that are already in positions of power to just shrink, or how would it
um, more
other
like
than like
they wouldn't have the same positions of power that they have now. Like think of something like big pharma companies. They're
Mhm.
only given the power that they have and the ability to charge as much as they do for drugs. That power is not something they form organically. Like in a
Yeah,
legitimate free market, they wouldn't be able to have that much power. They're granted that primarily by the regulations of the FDA, privileging bigger corporations and more centralized expressions of power. Um, And the other thing would be intellectual property rights, like the fact that no one else is able to produce drugs that are patented by a certain company. We can't have more accessible EpiPens because the company that has a monopoly on EpiPens through intellectual property decided to just jack up the prices. If you're in that situation, that's something
Mhm.
of like that's a corporate abuse of power that is specifically enabled by the state. um, I think if we abolish state power, we abolish all of the other privileges that come with it.
I definitely agree on the intellectual property point. And I do think drug prices, certain drugs would be pretty regulated by the market. But like, what about life-saving drugs and stuff that people don't have a lot of say in, like having to buy it? Doesn't that already give? I guess you could create more companies that would compete and provide the lower prices. but like,
Yeah, I mean,
but maybe
that's the
more for like
idea.
a specific hospital. If you live in Montana and you have no choice but to go to some private hospital, what's going to prevent them from you going in and you going out, and then you have I mean, it's kind of already happening in America, but like a substantially unpayable medical bill that you have no choice to, because otherwise you would have died and you had no choice but to go to the hospital. What's gonna regulate the commodification of healthcare?
Well, I don't know if anything really can regulate the commodification of healthcare. It is a good and a service.
I mean, the state could definitely regulate it,
The
but you
state
mean,
does regulate it,
yeah,
but like the commodification of healthcare, I would say is not something you can exactly get rid of. Um, like if you think of authoritarian Marxists who want to just get rid of all commodities, the only way for them to do that is to plan the entire economy from the top down, and we've seen that that doesn't really work, and that
yeah,
counter economics formed in the Soviet Union as a way for people to survive under state socialism. Um, so the idea is not that a company in a remote location will decide to just charge astronomically more than everywhere else. I don't think that would be one a very sustainable business strategy for anyone. Um, and also, I don't see why they would have incentive to have just a wildly different price than every other hospital. I
I mean,
think that's,
dude,
I think the more
if you
competition
put
there
somebody in
is,
a
the more
position, yeah, no, go
downward
ahead.
pressure on prices. Sorry, if you put somebody in a position to what?
What was that?
Sorry, you can go ahead.
No, no, I already forgot what I was gonna say. It's okay.
Okay. You're saying if you put somebody in a position, then something.
If they're in a position that they have to pay regardless. I mean, we've seen corporations, we've seen private industry not really care too much about, like, I mean, it already exists in private healthcare. Like there's no reason for them to charge the prices they do, but they still do because it's still a market economy and they want to drive up profits. And if they already give you healthcare, they're not like preventing, or they're not disincentivizing you from getting their service. It's like a guaranteed thing. I mean, if you get in a car accident, they bring you to a hospital, you don't really get to negotiate beforehand. So what is going to prevent them from deciding a price for you? That kind of deal. Because healthcare is, like, I feel like it's the most
Yeah, I mean, that is a good
obviously
question.
flaw of a market economy.
You would say it's like a market failure to provide
Yeah.
for emergency services appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most explicit form, I would say. Or like obviously
Yeah, I
fire,
mean,
you know.
that makes sense. Yeah, fire prevention. Well, I mean, think about that from the other side. That getting rid of the state, it doesn't only allow uh, market economies to flourish. It also allows every other form of social organization
True.
outside the state to flourish. So things we have now with not only charities, but religious organizations, community organizations, neighborhood associations, and most importantly, volunteer firefighting, as you mentioned. Like we already have people who are willing to volunteer for emergency services. Like I don't see a reason why we
True.
need the state to force people into any sort of associations when people have shown themselves more than willing to help their neighbors when they need to, volunteer their time for free when it's necessary and share
I just don't
resources.
see I don't see the argument against a a non-super statist version of a single payer healthcare system where it's, I mean, maybe they don't, it's more about the funding and not really the central planning, because right now it's like the healthcare industry is already controlled by private insurers. There's not a real, it's not between the doctor and their patient. And I think that's an issue. I think that's something that a single payer system would help fix. And it would, I mean, we see how much money is saved in countries that have at least a multi-payer system, just because of of the ability to like regulate.
Like having a public auction.
Yeah, even a public option with like a public option that covers all the people that need it necessarily. So not necessarily like, I don't know. I'm getting distracted because I'm thinking of how to introduce AJ because he just hopped on.
Well, let me jump in then.
Oh,
All right,
what's
jump
up?
in.
So I think you guys made Justus, you made a great point earlier, and I'm going to double back on it. So a lot of people don't realize, like the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, how they were created. They were created by the food industry to regulate competition, and then they morphed into this organization that became like, oh, we're gonna make sure we protect all these industries, like creating drugs and creating this, and like we're gonna say weed is bad, but all these, fentanyl you're taking is amazing and it's good for
Yeah,
you.
that's exactly right.
And so they're like, it is kind of like, we'll tell you what's this, we'll tell you what's that, but we all have to understand that that whole entire organization was created because of the food industry and the competition that was rising at the time. Things like Heinz ketchup, and those started to come pretty much when, this is going to go a little bit on a healthy tip, but when processed foods came into play, they came into play, and then so they created this agency that regulated how and what was deemed healthy and what was not deemed healthy, even though it's all processed food and processed food is not good for you. But they try to say, well, this processed food is good for you, but this processed food is not good for you, and then this drug is good for you, and then this drug's not good for you. So it's you have to understand that organization is very tied to businesses, um, and a lot of people that sits on those boards are very tied into the food industry and the drug industry. So take what they say with a grain of salt. Do your own research, because as Justin was saying earlier, that's if you're allowing the government to dictate what is good and what's bad for your health, then you're in big trouble because it's very tied to money and business.
Yeah,
And so whoever has
Yeah,
the most money is what's put on the boards, and those are going to be pushing those products, even though those products can kill you in 5 years. That's not the point. The point for them to do is make money. And so I just
yeah.
want to tell me a little history lesson there for people who doesn't know how the FDA
No,
was
thank
created.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And it also makes me think of how the food pyramid was created. That's like completely an industry thing too. And
yeah,
I think you could argue that a lot of the reason for all the obesity and problems in America is because of misinformation created by the government and the industries that run it.
exactly.
all right. I feel like now is the time. Our good friend AJ, the captain of the Pirate Party of America, he is here with us
All
tonight.
right.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Welcome,
Hey,
my friend.
am I on? And does my
You are
microphone sound
on.
good?
What's
That sounds
up?
amazing.
Hey, AJ,
Okay.
what's going on?
Hey, I just wanted to make sure my microphone sounded all right because I've had some issues with it before. But if we're good, then we're good. All right. I'm
We have
AJ. Yes,
officially we have a pirate party right now, guys.
we do have a pirate party right now. I didn't know
Yar, I guess.
the limit. I didn't know it constituted a pirate party was like four
Oh,
people. But who
four
knows?
is that's where you start, man.
Usually
That's
we
also
use
gonna be the title of the episode. We're gonna title it
yeah.
Pirate Party.
Hey, I'm good with that though. I'll have to talk a lot, I guess, to make that title like
Yeah, you have to
meaningful.
earn it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
can
gonna
always
have
take
to
that
earn
away.
it. You can always take it away. That's true. I'm AJ. I'm the chair of the United States Pirate Party. If you call it the Pirate Party of America, I think the pirates in Chile and
Oh,
Brazil
true.
would get a little upset. So we call it the United States
You're right.
Pirate Party and Canada. We've got a couple pirates in Canada. Not a Canada Pirate Party right now, but they're thinking about starting it back up. So I'm AJ. I'm chair of the United States Pirate Party. I feel like I don't think that needs any introduction to any of you here. But for the people at home, we're a little weird niche political party that is worldwide. We have elected officers in a bunch of different countries, just on either at the minor level or at the national level. In the case of Iceland and the Czech Republic. We came to fruition, in the internet age, if you're wondering why we're called the Pirate Party, not necessarily seafaring pirates, more, civil disobedience, downloading music online pirates, but we kind of play into both. And we have a lot of values that stem from when we were created. We consider ourselves very humanist. We believe in free speech, a lot of things that sort of became more meaningful around the time of the internet. And we try to not necessarily like pin ourselves down with any other sort of label, but we're friendly a lot of the time to people who are more left-leaning, people who are libertarian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And sort of what alliances we lean into kind of depends on the country that we're in and all of that sort of thing. We've been described before, I think, as like an alliance between left libertarians, radical centrists, and anarchists before. At some point that was on our Wikipedia page, which sure, why not?
I think it still is, and
Yeah,
it's progressives too.
Yeah. I think
Some radical
someone edited
liberals.
to include a couple other things. I'm going to be entirely honest with
You're actually
you all
on the
right now.
Wikipedia page too.
Oh yeah, I am on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with all of you right now. I'm still working on the elevator pitch. I've been chair for like a year, but I still don't have an elevator pitch down. It's really hard to explain, but
Yeah.
I guess the main takeaway is that I am usually very amenable to a lot of the ideas that are probably discussed on the show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very big tent in the green square of the four quadrants of the political compass, I would say.
Yeah, usually,
fair?
or we kind of bounce between the bottom two. Again, it really depends on.
Oh yeah, I guess a couple center right libs can
Yeah.
hang out, but
It depends on context. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd love to kind of shake being placed on the political compass, but I know that's not always necessarily too reasonable.
Yeah, I love it. So I mean, you and Justus, you guys are essentially, you're AJ the Pirate Party. Make sure I frame this correctly, but you guys are a very humanistic approach, and
Yes.
and Justus is really big on believing that us as society, we can govern ourselves. We don't need actual government holding us back, which I think is kind of a humanistic approach, And it's to
Yeah,
some
I would
degree-
definitely say it's a humanist approach. Like,
yeah.
human liberty is essential to human flourishing.
yeah, I don't remember
so-
what quote it is, but I think it sums this up for now. It was something like, whenever framed with the question of like, how are you going to prevent the biggest, the strongest person from establishing a new state in your anarchist society, and the response was like, well, that's essentially what happened. We already exist under the the natural state is anarchy, and like the strongest boot already took over society, and we're already living under what happens when an anarchist society falls apart or whatever. So like the natural state of being is anarchy. You're not born to be governed.
I think we're in a reflection point right now. I think Justice was saying that earlier, how Bitcoin and now AI, we are moving towards a governmentless system. And I do see that. And I wonder if we're in a reflection point as where's the limits of this governmentless system. And I
I'm
think
so sorry, guys. I think
we've
I have to
been-
hop off.
Oh, no. Well, I just want to save 5 minutes, replug your Twitter again, because we definitely want to have you back as a guest, and I'm pretty sure everyone wants to hear your approach. And
Yeah, thank you.
So-
Yeah, I'm glad we got you for like 20
Be
minutes or
on next time
something.
I get a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well-
for sure. Awesome. Thank
thanks,
you,
Justice.
guys.
I appreciate it.
All right, see you, buddy.
See ya.
So,
Of course. See you.
So yeah, as I was saying, I mean, for us, I think
My
that
bad.
we are moving to this positionless society where we are not relying on government. We're relying on, like you were saying, AJ, the humanistic approach. Bitcoin is the best example of that. It's the most, I think, it's the biggest example of that because it's not backed by a government, and it's kind of backed by us and our belief system and this idea that we don't need government to regulate our money. And which is a very humanistic thing. Like, why do we need government to control what we do if we can govern ourselves?
yeah, I will say, I think that as interested as I am in the possible applications in the future of things like Bitcoin or what have you, I'm sure there are other good examples. I will say that if you ask a lot of pirates, we'll probably say that right now, I don't know if a lot of us are convinced that the technology is quite there yet. You know, there are issues and kinks to work out, and almost everything, especially when it just starts. I know a lot of pirates were obviously really excited about cryptocurrency back when it kind of became an idea years ago. Now, I think a lot of us are just kind of watching to see what happens with it, and that, I mean, it changes depending on who you talk to, and also it changes between, like, with the individual. You know, there's a friend of mine on the board. A couple months ago, if you asked them how they felt about Bitcoin, they'd say, I don't really like it, it's not there yet. Now, if you ask them, they're going to say that they love the idea. So
Yeah.
I think that's another thing, too, about our approach and how we're trying to create this more humanist-minded look at, you know, some of these more kind of libertarian adjacent policies is some level of pragmatism, right, and skepticism, and watching to see what happens and thinking about what can be applied, what can be used right now, and what can be done right now to create good results. You will find that a lot of people in the Pirate Party, they have tendencies that are maybe a little bit more radical to a lot of people, but they are also very pragmatic about it. So it's, I guess, one of our main things is, okay, how do we take some of these ideas that are out there that we like, that aren't really mainstream, and figure out how to actually practically turn them into reasonable, actionable policy or suggestions for the individual person or suggestions for a community that can be done right now, instead of just kind of keeping our head in the clouds, which I think is, at least personally, my biggest complaint with a lot of anarchists, is sort of the inability to see, okay, that sounds great in the future, but what do we do right now to make people's lives better? And that's something we really try to focus on.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the Reform Party was, except they don't cater. You don't cater to conservatives the same way.
Yeah. Kind of. I mean, we're friends with the Reform Party in a lot of respects. We wish them really
What's
well.
left of them?
Yeah. I don't know too much about the inner workings of them or what happened. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to really have your steam after Ross Perot isn't around. So
I feel like
I
Pat Robertson probably killed him, didn't he? And Donald Trump, running in 2000. Yeah, it's not a good look.
I don't know anything about that, so I
No?
can't even make fun
Donald
of
Trump
jokes.
ran for president in the year 2000.
Wait, he did?
Yep, Google it. You know who he said his vice president was going to be?
Huh.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, that's really funny.
It was like, maybe it was just an exploratory committee or something, but he
Yeah.
dropped out. Yeah, obviously.
I've never heard of that before. That's
And
actually.
he was calling Pat Robertson racist and stuff like that. Oh, it's the best.
I feel like I feel a little dumb for not knowing this. Where's this information been?
I don't know. It's on Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. Seth loves Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big sort of a shoot. I can't even remember. Oh yeah, with the Reform Party and things like that. I think we, on the surface level, we do kind of share a lot of DNA with a lot of more moderate movements, which can seem a little weird at first. You know, we've got friends in the Reform Party, and we're kind of friendly towards forward, and we've got some people that hop back and forth, because I think that
Not so friendly towards libertarians anymore.
it depends. It depends. I've got still a lot of great people in the Libertarian Party.
I mean, the LP,
Yeah.
at least the Twitter account is not. You guys kind of beef.
Oh yeah. Sometimes. But yeah, and I think that's because when it comes to us sort of having kind of connections to moderates, at least in the U.S., I think that does have to do with our core values and sort of our approach being very similar to theirs. But at the end of the day, we find sometimes more radical results out of that approach, because we're not necessarily afraid to go there. We don't want to be restricted by where we're supposed to be on the political compass, or whether our ideas are more moderate or more radical. We just want to figure out, okay, what's an actionable thing we can do right now to actually improve the lives of people? And to some people, that can kind of sound like, oh yeah, of course, you're pro good things and anti bad things, isn't everybody?
Yeah.
But if you take a step back, actually, and look at it, and look at politics, there are a lot of people that actually aren't stepping back and trying their best to just apply the scientific method and just kind of reason through their viewpoints and reflect and take in new information. There are a lot of people that aren't actually doing that. So while it may seem silly to say, oh yes, we're pro good policy, I do still actually think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in normalizing the right way to think about politics. Because whether you're a mainstream conservative or a mainstream liberal or something that's a little bit more fringe, a lot of options, there are still a lot of people that they're not. It could really reason through and reflect on their beliefs a little bit better, and that's something we really try to encourage.
It's a positive message. I mean, I think that I think overall, we're always trying. I think as American people, that's the aspirational goals is to take away all this division in terms of rhetoric that we have going on right now. But I would say not all of American people, but the majority of American people. There are factions on both sides who use this discord to stay in power.
Yeah, I feel like partisanship is at least, especially because we have a two-party system. But the partisanship is really just brings out the black and white thinking in everybody's brain. Like it's
Exactly.
like the Jungian archetypes. I don't know, something about good or evil, and like you have to fucking assign an enemy at any point, and that's kind of what fuels them. So especially like Republicans. I mean, Democrats do it too, but Republicans kind of like that's their entire image is defining themselves by who they hate and who they're opposed to and everything that they dislike. And like,
there's something I've never gotten about that actually, because I understand that our minds work in such a way where it's very intuitive to have an enemy.
mm-hmm.
But I feel like we can almost channel that for good if we actually put our minds to it. Like,
yeah,
the enemy doesn't
agree
have to
on
be,
that.
Yeah. I mean, sure, maybe it's reasonable for your enemy to be, fascism or something.
Yeah.
But I really don't think the enemy has to be a political opponent. Imagine if you could channel a lot of people, and get them to agree with this idea that the enemy, the existential enemy that we have to fight is poverty. It is climate change. It is this or that or etc.
Or so, it could even be like more inherent to somebody's being, like not even like systemic problems. It could be just like selfishness or hate, something like that. Like the very thing that causes every single issue, like right at the root, which is kind of like the Marianne Williamson style of politics, where it's like, we're all people. We're all trying to. What was that?
How's she doing?
Not great. I mean, she kind of is growing at the same time, but like Biden is literally, they're not gonna welcome any challengers, and honestly, RFK is probably taking more support away from the anti-Biden coalition, anyways, which is mostly just independents that hate Biden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd chime that in, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no chance for anything interesting to happen DNC wise.
Yeah.
2024, and I honestly didn't think there would be. I wasn't holding my breath.
Mm-hmm.
But
I thought it'd be interesting if they even had a debate.
Yeah,
it'd at least be interesting. Not like something would challenge him truly, but at least I feel like he could be pressured by the progressive message and like all of the things he didn't do during the first 4 years of his presidency. I wish he could at least, and just to hear him talk. Ugh, they're not doing a debate for a very, very clear reason, and they like
barely... don't want to do that.
Yeah, it would not look well, and it would also I think it makes sense from their perspective too, because if they did do that, he would win anyways, okay? But he would just look so much worse being on the national stage like that against somebody that's actually wildly more intelligent, Marianne Williamson, and he would just be baffling around, and it would make him look so much older and weaker against Trump or DeSantis. So I don't know. I can see both sides to it, because obviously all things fall aside when it comes to just defeating the Republican Party for this next election cycle, because that would be just horrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reasonable incentive for the DNC to do anything out of the ordinary, and nothing that anyone would ever, not. They're playing it by the book. They have a candidate that's already in office, but it's really unheard of to shake that up at all. But I
mean, it happened in like 1980, I think, with the Republican Party. There was Gerald Ford he he was the incumbent, and I think Ronald Reagan. And if Ronald Reagan couldn't beat him and primary him, then like
Yeah,
good luck,
it's
because
extremely hard.
he won the next 4 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won
Yeah,
anyways. So,
it's
but
really hard to
still,
find it.
It
was that?
would have been really interesting. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, no, go ahead.
I said it would have been really interesting to see something like that, and it would have been, I think, just objectively, just generally good for democracy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
But I didn't expect it to happen, and I understand why. I don't know. It would have been. I think it would have been helpful in some way. Even
yeah.
it,
It's
I
just a
mean,
bad look.
obviously, any improvement, any even possibility of an improvement is helpful. But I think even for the, if we're just thinking about the DNC's interests as as a political organization, I think it would have been helpful for them in
Yeah,
some way.
but it's also, like I said, it's just a bad look for them too, because they're also facing Republican criticism. It's like the main pushback amongst Republicans that they think the election was rigged, and now
Yeah.
they're rigging the primary, like openly. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even
that
having
doesn't
a
help,
primary.
does it? Yeah.
That's the issue for me. It's like you're really just going to play into all their fears, which
Yeah,
is
but
not helpful.
at the end of the day, we know it's going to be Trump and Biden again, and
Well, we
it's going to
don't,
be
because still a lot of time, and I'm not going to lie, he's not looking great.
who's going to beat him.
Oh, I don't say beat him. He doesn't. He's not. He could always drop out at the last minute if his health is legitimately like, I don't know. But if he's really not going to do any like public debates or something like that, I don't know. I could see a last second situation like with Dianne Feinstein, where they're like, okay, we can't really hide it anymore. He's not he's not well, and like I don't know. I could see them sliding Gavin Newsom
If
in
they're
there.
hiding it, they're doing a terrible job of hiding it. To be
Well, maybe,
honest, that
yeah.
one.
I mean, it's difficult to hide the president of the United States from the public, but they're
Yeah.
clearly trying.
At the end of the day, everyone knows that Biden's um,
Deteriorating.
whatever word you want to use. I think the reality is they just don't want Trump. So if
Yeah,
the Republicans elect Trump, they're just gonna vote for Biden again, and that's his call to grace. But if the Republicans vote anyone else besides Trump, Biden will. I don't want him to lose, but I think he would lose against anyone
I
else.
think so. I don't. I won't say anybody, but I mean, I definitely Nikki Haley. If she's somehow won, she's just like not objectionable. Like people don't hate her. Even the Democrats aren't, or like whatever. It's Nikki Haley and
And that's the
Tim
scary part.
Scott. I don't know.
So on the GOP side, I mean, are we still humoring DeSantis? Because I was really worried about him, but it feels like
I don't think he's going to run.
I'm in the battle between him and Trump, though. I mean, it kind of feels like Trump's kind of got him beat.
Yeah, I
So
think DeSantis is too smart to run now because he is losing the public image battle, but he is still considered the successor, and he's young, so he's just going to wait it out. That's what I think. I don't
that's
think he's
fair.
going to run at all.
I thought he was gonna run, and then I see him losing terrible to Disney, and you don't want to start
Yeah,
an election like that.
yeah, he's got to recover his image if he wants to do that.
Yeah, it'd be like, yeah, I lost to the mouse, but I want to be president of the United States.
I'm
It's like,
most concerned about the fact that Biden won't be replacing Kamala Harris, and he'll probably be reelected. And if he makes it through 4 years, maybe we'll be fine. But like, the Democratic Party would be so screwed over if she's the nominee. They're literally hiding her more than they're hiding Biden.
well,
That's
I just don't think they're both. It's weird because I
they
think
just don't. They're just not in touch. Neither of them.
it's not necessarily. Yeah, well, yes, that's a very big thing. They're not in touch. I just think they don't have the. They don't really have a base of
No,
supporters.
it's
Uh,
just like anti. It's just people. We're all united over what we hate, which is what I'm trying to say we shouldn't do.
yeah, we're a night over Trump, and I think that's why they got elected. But now the Trump effect is wearing off, and now it's like, are they really inspiring people?
Mm-mm.
And they're neither one of them are inspiring. Like even Bernie Sanders is more inspiring than either one of them.
Bernie
It's
Sanders is
like
one of the most inspiring politicians in the country. Like,
exactly. And
yeah,
people when they look at President of the United States, they want to be inspired to whatever kind of inspiration they get, they still want to be inspired. And if they don't have no sense of you know inspiration from the presidency, it doesn't bode well for the presidency because the presidency is a symbol. stands for something, and I just don't think the American people want a symbol where it's like an 80-year-old man is running for president of the United States
Yeah.
and he can't even get through a speech, you know,
I mean, I
that
think he's
stuff.
still a better representation of the country than Trump, but for our
He
party,
is.
he represents everything the opposition is going to fight against. So
He
you have
is.
somebody like Obama, you literally have to just make up shit. Like he's from Muslim, he's from Kenya, he's a communist. You literally can't even use the things that his actual qualities, and that's part of the reason why it was so hard for them to challenge him, even with
Mhm.
like good candidate, somebody like Mitt Romney, that's like very likable to a lot of people. Like you just don't have enough attacks against him. And
And
yeah,
that's why I said if it's not Trump, I see us Democrats having a very hard time if it's not against any one of the Republicans split up because it wasn't like the Biden was elected because of aspiration. He was elected because
out of
we didn't like
desperation.
that guy. Desperation. There you go. Perfect word.
That being
And
said, I
now,
do think. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think I cut
no,
you
go
off.
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I was finishing up. Yeah.
That being said, though, I do think that I actually, and my memory of the primaries is fuzzy, but I do remember there being a strangely high amount of people that were actually really enthusiastic for Biden, and I don't actually know if I
I
didn't
don't know if
see.
that's true.
You don't think that's
It
true?
was after, as soon as the big three candidates or whatever dropped out. Like as soon as Pete and they all endorsed him, everybody fell in line. But everybody, there was nothing but attacks against Biden from like everybody. He was the focal candidate. Everybody was attacking him, and everybody was in their own camps. Pete camp, Elizabeth Warren's camp. He didn't. He had like support with establishment and like black candidates, stuff like that. But he wasn't. I mean, even Iowa, New Hampshire, he was like third, fourth, fifth.
Well, but I mean, there was a Pete camp, there was a Bernie camp, there was a Warren camp,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyone outside of that, I mean, I can't even really recall. Was there really even much of a Harris camp? I
no,
mean,
no, no,
yeah,
No,
that's what I'm
no,
saying.
no.
There really wasn't such a thing.
no,
So I feel
not
like,
not with Harris. She dropped out before Iowa. She had
yeah,
she at one point was at like 15%. She dropped to like 2%, and then she's just like, okay, no, maybe not. I remember Pete's camp having a lot of energy. Warren's camp had a lot of energy. Even Michael Bloomberg at one point had a lot of energy, which was really irritating for me because I was like, he's actually going to do it, isn't he? Oh, that would
No.
have been so awful. But no, yeah, even I don't think there was that much. Like Biden had supporters, but he did not have enthusiasm. Even then, they would show like his rallies, and it would be like 12 dudes, and they're all sitting at a different table, and it was rough.
but
But
my
That,
point being, I think that out of everybody, even if the enthusiasm for Biden was a little rough,
yeah,
I do think that he probably still came in third or fourth for enthusiasm.
yeah,
Maybe that
yeah.
just speaks to the fact that a lot of the other candidates just weren't very good either. But
or it's
I don't
just so
know.
split because it was split
Yeah,
30 ways that you're just going to get establishment
yeah.
support at one. He just had that bias, or not bias, that privilege, I guess.
Yeah, because people knew him. They knew, oh, that Obama's VP. I'm
Yeah,
sure it'll be a great, establishment pick to watch. I don't know. I guess my point is that it's not like he had a huge base or anything, but I mean, compared to anyone really actually looking to replace him, I mean, I don't, especially now that he's the president.
yeah. I don't think that it's clear who would replace him in like a regular situation.
But I also
Although I
don't think
don't
there's
think
anyone
that
really raring to go for anybody. Like I don't think there's like a huge, contingent of people who are like, yeah, Pete needs to replace him, or I mean, Bernie already,
definitely not him. I think
it's
that
not.
people have given up on Pete.
Pete's also kind of an establishment type pick, so
Yeah,
he'll probably get his time in the limelight at some point.
I'm convinced it's gonna be Gavin Newsom is gonna be the next one.
I
Yep.
think so too.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Seth. I think Gavin Newsom's probably going to be the next president.
I
I
don't. Yeah, I do think Biden's gonna make it, and I don't think it's gonna end up being Kamala Harris. And I think she'll run, but I don't think she'll win
Yeah.
because I don't know. It will be
But
split.
here's the thing: if Biden wins, then they're definitely going to be Republican, and
I don't know.
this is more
Yeah, no,
history
you're
than
right.
anything. Yeah, we've never ever had a third. There's only been one time in history we've ever had a three-term party, and that was during FDR's reign. And then when he died, that died. So there's never
So unless
been.
they had like a really really anti-establishment Democrat run, they're not going to have a third establishment Democrat in a
Yeah,
row.
they're just not going to do that.
No, I don't
I
think so.
think we tend to swing as a country both
Mhm.
directions.
And
But
we're so anti-authoritarian that you can't go 15 years with one party being in charge and not have a lot of people switch. That's
Yeah.
what I
of
think.
course not. Yeah, it's only can be.
I do wonder though if that rule is
Two.
going to be broken, because you're seeing this increased polarization. You're seeing Gen Z voters kind of keep a red wave at bay in the 2022 election. A lot of really interesting
Yeah,
things that are unexpected. So like, is that gonna? I guess my question is that going to happen anymore, or
I
is
do
everyone
think the
else pretty much
establishment
set?
is going to die.
And the establishment's going to die, but what happens after that?
We're going to have a new establishment, and we'll probably start fighting with them too. But they're going to be slightly more progressive. They're going to be like instead of Obama and Biden, they'll be more like Amy Klobuchar, like
Oh
Who's that?
boy, the
a little bit farther left, and then
progressive queen, Amy Klobuchar.
and then where they'll be like actually serious about like protecting unions and increasing minimum wage and stuff like that. But that's as far as they'll go. Like that's what's going to happen. Like right now they'll pander and they'll talk about minor progressive changes and they'll do nothing. But then I'll think they'll actually achieve them. But it's still only going to be like center left minor reforms. I don't think we're going to get a visionary candidate for like 10 years at least. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's probably true. Like 10 years from now.
I mean,
Um,
it depends. I think it all depends on the conservative base, and it seems like they may be factioning, which I didn't think was going to be possible. I mean, we see what's happening with the Daily Wire and like the conserv and like Steven Crowder stuff like that, which I'm leading into this on purpose because
yeah.
Jesse's not seen the video, the
Oh
Steven
boy.
Crowder video, and I have it
Yes.
pulled up. Do you want to watch the 3-minute video? You ready, AJ? Have you?
I've already seen it, but oh boy.
Yeah,
All right,
I'm
let's
ready.
go.
All right. Let's see here.
And does Jesse know the context for all this and what's going
Yeah,
on?
I know the context. I just
Okay.
haven't seen the video. Yeah.
Sorry, I had it pulled up, but then I messed up.
Right, but I
no,
guess
that's right.
for those of you who don't know, if anyone's watching, Steven Crowder is currently in a bit of a mess, both with his conservative commentator colleagues, but also just on the internet, for the fact that recently it's been revealed that he's been going through a really rough divorce, and he's been talking about it online. There's some all sorts of other stuff with it. Candace Owens has an opinion on this whole thing. It's a whole rabbit hole to jump down, but there's some footage that's getting leaked from his Ring doorbell. Some things that aren't even released yet. This is a snippet that has been released. That it very much solidifies that the whole thing is absolutely his fault because he's kind of very terrible to his wife.
Oh, he's an awful human being.
Yeah.
And in all of the stuff that he talks about on his show, he's the largest conservative YouTuber. And he just talks about all these conservative values and about how, like, oh, pornography is awful because it subjugates women, stuff like that.
Sure.
And, like, oh, but also all these feminists, they're all full of crap because women have equal rights and blah, 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 blah. And then we see some context of like
We see
how
what
he's
he's like
living
behind the scenes, how he treats women as opposed to the feminist elite or whatever he's really against.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. The audio on.
No, you just did it. I drew a boundary at abusive and cruel. You are not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There is no groceries. I'd be happy.
Steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes, other than man. Other than man. You see love and respect. No. Other than man. No, you're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You are not
then I
taking
will ask them to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's no threat, Stephen.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Stephen, I can't.
She was
Feeling
8
some
months
constraints?
pregnant.
Stephen.
Like, I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either. Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Stephen,
You're making it work. You do that. The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
we are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
Stephen,
Yeah. There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Stephen.
Hillary,
Stephen,
you give up so easily.
I'm
I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. And you said, then we're at an impasse.
Stephen, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Stephen, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it. You go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll get text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just.
Walk the dogs. Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? No, you take Betty.
Oh, wow. This guy's a winner.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You saw Jesse with the minutes, I guess. I guess they have the footage, but they haven't released it yet of him, screaming, "I will F you up" at your wife, at his wife. Apparently, he walked that back as soon as he said it, but he still said it.
Yeah. That guy is wow. But see, that's this new culture, just trying to rediscover masculinity.
Yeah, I feel like he's been watching Andrew Tate or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's like the Andrew Tate's little son or something.
Like the way he was like proselytizing towards her, just like he's like teaching her something. Like it literally seemed like he was like talking on the stream. Like he wasn't treating her like a person. He's treating her like literally like he's on camera or something. But it was,
like he's some kind of debate bro almost.
Yeah.
Like trying to
right.
debate her into doing the chores he wants her to do.
and the way that she just like walks over, I didn't notice that until now. She walked over and like picked up the leash, like she was just gonna walk the dog like he commanded her to, but then she just walked back in, bruh. And he's like, "Watch it! Don't call me an abusive person. Watch it or fucking what? You're an abuser?" Like,
Yeah. It's well, and back to humanism, which we talked about a little bit when I was introduced.
Yeah.
I think it's just entirely expected for these commentators that are very gung ho about conservatism to be this way, because if your values aren't based in something like humanism, and instead all you're signaling about the entire time you're on the media, and the entire way you build your base is talking about how your values are things like strength and discipline and punitive justice and correcting things when they're wrong, and you have these sort of values.
they're like standards he wasn't applying to himself, even in the moment.
Yeah. Not only were those standards that he wasn't applying to himself, but also if that's your worldview, then of course you're going to treat people like crap in your day-to-day interactions. I mean, and a lot of the people who are maybe more center-right that watch him, I think they just kind of like that as an act. Those aren't really the values that I think they personally even hold to that degree, because I'm sure that not everyone that watches Steven Crowder treats their family like that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting and I think entertaining to watch someone that sort of takes these beliefs to this logical extreme. And I think every kind of political pundit is kind of like that, regardless of what their beliefs are.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, if you're, if you really do take these, sort of modern conservative values to their fullest possible conclusion, you have no choice but to be a horrible person.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, he's clearly showing that's who he is.
Mhm.
Like it's not. It's like Tucker Carlson. It's like he's putting on a show. He's acting. He doesn't really like Trump. He doesn't. I don't think he's conservative, but he's like playing a game for ratings. But this guy is truly psychotic in his mindset, and he has a platform, and he's like
He's
speaking all
been
this
on Joe
psychotic
Rogan.
thought.
You know what I mean? He's been on Joe Rogan. He's
Yeah.
a very, very famous person. You know the meme, the "Change My Mind" meme, Jesse? Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
That's Steven Crowder's thing.
Yeah.
He went to college campuses and he set up the "Change My Mind," and he'd have little like 19-year-old, slightly liberal girls that like want to talk about why being pro-choice is important, and he just has all these statistics that he has memorized, and he just obliterates them on camera.
Yeah.
It's like, look how smart I am. I'm Steven Crowder. I'm smarter than this girl that's studying dance, but like she knows literally nothing about politics. So I'm such a genius. And it's like, if any of us were put in that situation, we would know how to counteract any of his arguments. But for millions of like young people, like that's what they're exposed to in politics. I used to watch Steven Crowder, like when I was like libertarian. It's just
Yeah.
he's massive, and he'd have very famous guests on, like
Mhm.
very famous guests, like mainstream people too, which I feel like in hindsight, a lot of them we're gonna regret, but I don't know. And if you even contrast that with their rivals, like the Daily Wire,
Yeah.
I think even Ben Shapiro is a much better person than that. I legitimately think that he, like, when he talks about, you know, women like need protection and stuff like that, it's because he cares about his wife, and he like, he genuinely has some sort of like feminist. Even if you talk shit about feminism, he like actually respects the role of women in society, and like,
Mhm.
oh, they make the home, and they raise children and teach them values and stuff like this. Even they can have a career. He always talks about his wife's a doctor. I think this is like not even a realistic like depiction of what conservative values are. It's like when you're raised in a liberal society, you're just become a reactionary, and it's like, I'm going to do the opposite of what liberals think. And this is what happens when you're the opposite of a liberal. You just subjugate women in a way that's like, you know the way they talk about like Muslim countries and how everything is about conservatism is hypocritical, because everyone they hate is another conservative, and they call them whatever. It's just because they're not white that is not
Yeah.
cool. But like this is Christian Taliban essentially. I mean, they
Well,
literally want women
strong language.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
they want a woman that's 8 months pregnant to do something. I don't even know what they're describing her doing, but something that obviously is not good for pregnant women to do.
Yeah. Oh, so I actually know what it was.
Thank God.
I guess one of the dogs needed some kind of medicine, like a pill they needed to take. And apparently, his wife was concerned there's some kind of warning or something. It might not necessarily be good for pregnant women to handle. So she didn't want to do it because of that. And that's why Crowder kept yelling at her, well, put on gloves then, because he still wanted her to do it just so, I don't
Why
know, I
can't
guess
he
he
do
didn't
it?
have to.
It's his dog.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's funny you mentioned, we went through the whole thing about Steven Crowder's history. I kind of remember back in the day when he was looked at, perhaps he didn't earn it, but it was like the good conservative because he was willing to go out there and like debate
Yeah.
people. And it's just kind of funny how maybe that wasn't the right reading to have back then. Maybe I was just like a a gullible center left libertarian type kid to begin with to even think that. But it was just because he put on this he put on this persona at least of being willing to reason with his debate opponents, and that is really what he got big off of. So
But
it's really just
I've watched a ton of them. I've never
Yeah.
seen him change his mind.
yeah, and that too. But he did project this image. He just when's he ever really lived up to the image that he built his brand off of? I don't know if he ever has.
He's just a grifter.
Yeah.
It's all about the money, which he turned down How much was it? $10 million from the Daily Wire because he thought he was worth more.
They thought he was worth more than that.
The Daily Wire was going to give him a show, and that's why they're feuding, is because he's like, "Fuck off! You guys want to lowball me with $10 million? Like, I'm God." He's insane. He
Yeah.
didn't say that stuff, but that's how he thinks.
Well, guys, I think to me, I mean, I think that this guy is clearly not an example of what any child or any person that's aspiring to be in politics should emulate. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that he's literally like the worst example. Like me, I mean, I get I'm a progressive, so a lot of my viewpoints are going to be progressive in nature, and I'm going to have discord with the Republican Party in certain aspects of it, obviously because of my positions. But I don't hate them. I don't think that they're
there's
bad
too
human
many.
beings.
You know what I mean? There's too many to
Yeah,
put them in a box like that, even
yeah.
if
I
they
don't
have
hate
very
them. I don't
similar
think bad
thinking.
human beings. I don't hate feminists. I don't hate people who choose to be submissive to their husband or I at the end of the day, what I hate is, you know, being contradictory. That's what I really hate. It's like you can't sit there and spout that you're just super Christian guy and then at the same
Yeah,
time you got a ring and completely make your wife look like dog shit. Like that's not even bad for her.
no
It's like
pun
it's
intended.
embarrassing for her and her friends and everyone she got to see. And your unborn child has to now see his mom being
True.
berated on the line for
Yeah.
years because it doesn't go away. So it's like,
Yeah, if you
you know,
saw his apology video, it was very much misrepresented or whatever. He's all like, "Guys, or I wanted to keep it secret. You know, I really care about my values and the sanctity of marriage." And he's super like anti-divorce,
Oh
which came
yeah,
out.
he's gone on this whole arc about he doesn't believe in a no fault divorce, and during when he started talking about this, he was like talking about how mad he is that his wife gets to divorce him because he doesn't believe in that, like all sorts of
Yeah,
stuff, and it's just like wow.
he's
I
like, "Well,
wonder, yeah,
under the state of
I wonder why a guy who acts like this might have an issue with no fault divorce.
of
yeah,
course,
Is it
like
because
which
he
is
can't?
legal under the state of
Yeah, yeah.
Texas."
Is it because he can't? He wouldn't be able to, keep someone around to berate otherwise. If
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
literally.
But that's how
He
you get them. It's like
yeah,
I've seen that a lot where people use religion, and it's kind of sad, honestly. They take a very perspective of you have to be like the biblical wife, and it's like I don't know what that means, but it just seems like it's a nice excuse to control me,
yeah, yeah,
and that's what that is. And I see a lot of people who do that, and it's a form of control, and it's a sickness, honestly, because it's a psychological disorder. But people like him who on that level obviously are control freaks, and
yeah.
so I feel bad for his wife. I mean, but
Oh yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, he's putting her in a situation that's embarrassing, and it's not a good look on for his millions of followers. And if his
Candace
million followers
Owens.
are giving him the green light to do that to women, then that says something about his followers.
Yeah.
it doesn't look like they are. It seems like he's getting in pretty hot water online, though. I'm not actually, and I'm not in touch with any hardcore Crowder heads or
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, they're all saying that it's like edited and like out of context. That's
Oh,
what
did
he
they
said.
buy? Did they buy
'Cause
that line that he
I
threw out
was
there? Yeah.
watching. There was a moment where it seemed like they skipped a few seconds, but it seemed like they skipped a few seconds, and there would be he'd have to say some incredible shit for it to look good,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
rest of it to look like not like to put it in context. Like that's.
Yeah.
Anyways, Candace Owens is
What
Candace
you say?
Owens is very critical of him right now, and she's probably the main voice on the conservative side that's making him look like shit. I mean, he's like making him look like shit, but most people are kind of like, well, let's stay away from this situation. Let's wait out. That's the like conservative mindset. Let's wait and see. But she's like going hard attack. Like she's known this. She's offering Hillary Crowder like to come on her show, and like the
Mm-hmm.
way that she said it makes it seem like I don't know. There's a conspiracy theory that this is a Daily Wire leak, and that they somehow leaked this ring video or whatever, which was probably from Hillary Crowder's like defense team or whatever, which is how we have access to their Ring video. But I don't know. There's a
Yeah.
it's very possible that we see Hillary Crowder go on Candace Owens and like tell all. It's very possible, and that would be just some wild shit. Because now Steven Crowder's uh, he's talking about like he literally threatened his wife on Twitter. He's like, I want us all to get along, blah 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 blah. But if people need to know some information, I have to release these medical records or these mental health records, blah 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 blah. Then that's what we have to do. Like he's basically saying that shit. So I don't know. I think things are about to get even crazier.
Yeah.
It's just finally it's exciting to see the conservatives start to infight. Finally,
Well, I
like
feel like
they're united.
if you're in a Candace Owens situation, or even or position, or even in Ben Shapiro's position, and you're a minority in this conservative movement that kind of almost promised you that it was reformed in some ways and moving in a better direction, and you see it get more and more reactionary, more and more violent, more and more okay with these sorts of things. Uh, I guess what are you to do except kind of try and use your platform to course correct? I mean, not to not to gender abuse too much, because that can be a real that just is bad to do. But like I feel like of course Candace Owens is the only major conservative figure that's speaking out. Like I'm sure she feels something, being sort of the only woman in that environment.
Yeah.
That might give her some kind of obligation. I don't know. I do, as much as I don't really like Candace Owens, I do really feel for her being stuck in this conservative movement that's getting more and more reactionary. When that means that people like Steven Crowder are getting more and more buddy with people who want her dead.
Yeah. I think I think it'll be interesting to see because I ratio Laverne Spicer or whatever on Twitter today, and I don't know. I've always found like the Black conservative movement to be interesting because like African American people are generally more conservative than Caucasian people, and they go to church more often and this
But they
and
all
that.
vote
Yet,
Democrat.
but they all vote Democrat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and this is why you could be conservative, but you don't want to affiliate yourself with people that like to affiliate themselves with neo Nazis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like he has had legitimately people that you could call alt right and neo Nazi, those kind of people on his show, and they're just like, I don't know, they always give them the benefit of the doubt and stuff like that. They're always painting them in a good light. They're not necessarily saying, I mean, Crowder's come really, really close to saying some Nazi shit, so.
Well, this is the
I don't wanna
circuit,
watch
especially if you get Matt Walsh involved and people like
Oh my
that.
god!
This is the circuit that brought Milo and Nick Fuentes through the whole identitarian movement to the forefront. The people that popularized the term alt right because they knew that if they said they were neo Nazis, it wasn't going to fly. This is this side of the more strangely moderate side of conservative political commentary is the circuit that birthed this current issue with reactionary politics. I mean,
Even Joe Rogan,
yeah,
he's not even center right. He's like a center left guy, and it's just like this. I don't know. It is by bringing them on the show, you have a responsibility to critique them in a way that doesn't let them like control the narrative, because that's what happens. People are like, oh, this far right dude's not too bad. He's just like me. And then
Yeah.
you start listening, and then you start to empathize with them, and you start like repeating their lines without thinking about it. Which is, I mean, I'm saying this from personal experience. I grew up watching YouTube in a conservative family, and like I went down some crazy paths, and that shit was not expected, and it was not safe because like you don't. It's a slow burn, and then you realize like then you're like defending all these people that everyone's calling all right, and you assume that the government is like, everybody's trying to crack down on these ideas because they're not. I know they're normal people, they're regular people. They're talking about being good to others and this and that, and you empathize with them, but then you really don't have a critique against somebody that's also espousing like fascistic ideas and spreading them into the mainstream. So I don't know. Empathizing with Nazis is a dangerous game.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and
Well,
it's
guys,
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, you,
Go ahead,
you go.
AJ. No, finish for your last thought.
Sure, I was just going to say, you kind of see a microcosm of this whole thing with Dave Rubin and his show.
Oh my
The way
God.
that he would this whole thing. I do feel really bad for the guy, but he was be very friendly, invite all sorts of people on. With people who are
I've seen
very
him in
much
person.
yeah. Really?
Yeah, I met Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin.
I'm so sorry. But he was really one of these figures that were really, really chummy with a lot of really not great people. So there are a lot of people that want him dead because he's gay, and it's like I don't want to, yes, I guess he kind of brought that on, but also I feel really bad for the
Yeah.
guy because he legitimately thought these people were reasonable people to have some kind of discussion and debate with, only to find out that a lot of these people are very, very bad people.
And now he's in a place where he's like, literally, I think the last thing I saw was him talking to some religious person. He's saying like, yeah, I'm trying to pray the gay away. It's like they will change you. They will change you if you accept conservatives as your in group. You know what I mean? That's the thing about conservatism is it's not an ideology. It's saying everything prior is acceptable. Everything new is unacceptable. So like that's why it really is such a broad movement of like every single idea, every single archaic thought we've already tried and failed is for some reason acceptable because every other good idea also came in the past. So it just means like just don't trust these new people because they're they have more power than us basically. And that means you can believe anything and they don't really care what you believe. That's the danger of they think they're so open-minded because they'll talk to anybody about anything, but
Yeah.
they're platforming any idea without any sort of pushback because all they end up saying is like some Christian values, which every single society that's committed mass genocide has done so. And
Same thing. Yeah.
like the Crusades, the Nazis, the anything like that, is all in the name of conservative values. There's not a concrete value like liberalism, where it's like every single individual needs to be free. Conservative just means old.
Yeah, and it's a
The old way.
shame. It's a shame that like the philosophical underpinnings of conservatism are so bad.
It
Because
was classical liberalism, right?
But I feel like in a perfect world, if you had some kind of perfect political system, whatever that is, in a world where everything functions according to plan, I do think there would absolutely be a place at the table for people who are kind of like watchdogs almost, right? Like don't accelerate too
Yeah.
fast. People that tried to rein things back in. Sort of like I guess almost more of a moderate force in a way. But I do
Yeah.
think that if we're going to talk about like some kind of perfect political system, like a perfect marketplace of ideas,
Yeah.
I think something like that maybe kind of resembles conservatism would be
Yeah.
really, really useful and healthy. But
It's
what we have,
conservative liberalism, essentially.
yeah. But what we have right now is absolutely not that.
Yeah. It's reactionary. It's not defined. They're defined by their opposition. If we are pro trans rights, they're anti trans rights. And they will find their arguments and reasons. They'll make them up. They'll say they're pedophiles and rumors based on zero evidence just to create fear, just so that they win an idea that their opposition supports. They just care about winning and being right, and they don't even care about being right. They care about feeling right. No pun intended, because it's right wing.
Yeah. That was
Well, I
very
mean, I've
funny.
always said it. I've said it for years. I think it's kind of funny, but I think conservatives are definitely the most feels-based faction in American politics currently.
There isn't one of the key like psychological distinctions is like they are motivated by disgust or something like that. While liberals are more like motivated by openness of ideas, stuff like this. Conservatives are uniquely very like sensitive people. That's exactly like the thing, and conservatives are also not very reflective because every single one of their criticisms are projections.
Yeah.
You're a snowflake. You're so sensitive. You're they want giant government. They want everybody to rule over us and they want to insert their values into us. Like these are all projections of what you want to do, and that's why you think that's what the opposition is going to do, is because you know what you want to do. So just listen to all their criticisms. It's what they're promising they're going to do. So
Which
Yeah.
it's so funny because that's definitely not like intentional. Not every like conservative is like Joseph Goebbels levels of like understanding what they're up to propaganda wise. It just
yeah,
kind of turns out that way, and I don't know. I wonder what the psychology is behind that, other than the fact low openness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. I don't know. There's what's his name? I don't know. Like Jonathan Haidt, Steven Pinker. They are interesting on that idea, even though they're very middle of the road. I think that gives them at least a perspective on both sides and the psychology behind it. But
I think Pinker is interesting. I mean, he's also
Harvard professor.
yeah. I'm very interested in the whole subsect of political linguists. I'm a linguist student, so I kind of try to keep up with what Pinker and Chomsky and them are doing. Some really weird stuff sometimes, but it's especially Chomsky. He's on his whole
Yeah. Oh my god.
his anti-Ukraine arc right now.
Yeah, I think his brain is actually degenerating too. I'm not gonna lie. If you look at his work, it still holds up until like 2019, and then he's just kind of reactionary and Assad and all this stuff. Whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
he's made enough contributions to linguistics to be relevant forever. I mean, in every single class I take in college, there's some citation by Chomsky. It's
Yeah.
just I don't know. At some point, I know that the main criticism of this is, well, you don't want to be more ageist than necessary, but man, I really do think there's a point where you might just not be fit for politics anymore.
Yeah, I think he's just more defined by his opposition to America than uh,
Yeah,
nowadays.
you're right.
You know what I mean? I think his brain is not as sharp that he can really like examine all the ideas. He's just sort of like, oh, America's doing an intervention.
It must be
That's
bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's kind of like it's become more short-sighted thinking, and I think he's just not where he's used to be, which is a shame. But all of my heroes have failed me, so it's okay. Everyone turns out to be evil eventually.
It's okay. Me too. I was really talk about like kind of getting sucked into the alt-right pipeline a little bit as a kid.
Yeah,
I was really
Indiana.
disappointed. I was really disappointed when I woke up one day and realized that maybe Shoe on Head wasn't all she was cracked up to be.
Yeah, everybody's flawed. Even Vosh, even
Even Bosch.
Destiny.
Uh,
Yeah, it's okay. Just let your heroes go. Be your own hero. Be the change you want to be in the world.
it's cheesy, but it's true. I mean, there's actually again another pirate party thing is that there are a lot
Hell
of people on the board or in the organization or like very that very kill your heroes minded, and that's sort of one of the reasons why we try and build ourselves as like syncretic or kind of like forward party moderate wise, where like we don't really want to be left wing or right wing. The reason why we kind of talk about that sort of thing and why it's kind of different than the way the forward party does it or why like moderate parties do it is
Yeah.
because what we mean when we say stuff like that is like we just don't want to be dogmatically beholden to like any philosopher or take anyone else's word for it. We just want to
Mhm.
do the stuff that needs to be done.
But you at least still have like positions and values.
Yeah. We do still have positions
Forward
and
Party
values.
has none. They're just like, we want to break the two-party
Yeah,
system, and you can believe whatever the fuck you want. And
Yeah, which is going to be dangerous. Yeah, I do
Yeah.
think it's going to. I don't know. I admire a
Forward
lot of stuff
Party-
about the Forward Party, and I'm worried about a couple things. when
I
it
could
comes to the
definitely see a
Party.
Forward Party sounding like the name of a fascist party. That's just like literally like the
Well,
the
yeah,
fascists
when the
call
right
themselves
wing,
the-
when the right wing was monarchism, fascism was like this new hip syncretic
called the
thing.
third
Yeah.
position.
The third position, yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was 100%.
I mean, it is a combination of the state and corporations
Yeah.
to let's combine and achieve things together. Like in some ways, you could see like some dumb independent person being like, "Yeah, of course, that's brilliant. We need the government to just completely to run the private businesses, but we don't want socialism." I don't know. I can see some really dumb people being brought into that pipeline. So
Of course.
I don't know. That's kind of the idea we were just talking about is like platforming the wrong people.
Mhm.
I mean, we want freedom of speech, but you don't have to intentionally platform Nazis and act like their ideas are just as valid. When we have all the data and all of the reasons to counteract all of their ideas, when it's just like it's just comes down to like egocentrism, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like toxic masculinity at its purest form.
Well, the
Like,
glory of free speech is freedom of association, right? You get to make the like, yeah, maybe no one should be put in jail for displaying fascist imagery the same way, like in Germany, even though I think Germany of all countries has a good enough excuse for that.
yeah,
But everyone also has a right to point at the fascists and go, "Ha! Look at the fascist. It's so silly that they're a fascist," right? And not allow them on their platform, their social media company, what have you. That's fully with that. That
yeah,
is
we're
free speech
learning.
working as intended.
Yeah, we're learning that Republicans don't understand free speech because they
Yeah, yeah,
think that them being censored by a private company that they are voluntarily posting stuff on the website like Twitter, they think that that company choosing to censor their ideas is somehow a violation of free speech. Free speech doesn't mean you can say whatever you want uncriticized. It just
yeah,
means we're not going to throw you in jail.
yeah. Exactly.
So
I mean, and as much as I would love Twitter to be, some kind of democratically operated cooperative or whatever in
yeah,
50 years or however long it takes,
yeah,
that doesn't mean I don't believe in the right to decide what they do and don't want on their platform.
yeah. At least while we have the laws that respect the property rights
Mhm.
that exist now, like you can't deny that that is, I don't know, that they have the right to self-determine, you know what I mean? Which
Exactly.
Elon Musk is going to throw the entire business and ruin it, and it doesn't matter, we'll let it happen, but I don't know. He has the right to. It's his property. He spent the money. That's how we currently acknowledge property rights. So there's no reason. And how could they like criticize them now? Like they're seeing, oh, this guy, he's our guy. Elon's taking over, and he's making the exact same mistakes, or at least the same things that they criticized all the other CEOs of doing. And he's banning people on a whim, and he's doing this and that. So it's like, I don't know. We all know that if they had the power, they would not do anything that they're criticizing us of doing. We've seen it. They become big government. They start censoring. They start banning books. So conservatism is just, let's make the other guy look bad, and we're not gonna live our values, or they do, and then they're like Steven Crowder. They live their values.
Exactly. Well, guys, I think we have to cut it short here. Well, not
Yeah, it's a
short.
little short.
It
We
was an
left it
extended
open.
session. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have AJ back again.
Sure.
We,
AJ, you are hella charismatic. Let me tell you.
yeah, man, this is
Thank you.
amazing, man.
I really appreciate that. I was a little worried because my webcam on this laptop is kind of crappy that
Yeah,
I
it's not
wouldn't.
noticeable.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad. I'm glad.
It was awesome, man. So I look forward to it the next time. We're going to chime out for today. But next week, we definitely want you guys to come back. Me and Seth have a great show. Hopefully, we can get AJ back next week and we'll coordinate his schedule. And then we'll try to get some more people.
Yeah, we generally do Tuesday nights, but it's for the last few weeks it's been very random. So who knows what happens? But we'll
Yeah.
keep the internet updated on when our
Yeah.
next episode will be.
Follow us on
Whatever
Twitter, all of
works.
us. AJ, you have a Twitter they can
Yeah.
follow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you already follow him.
Uh,
Yeah, for our Twitter followers.
yeah. At Anthony spelled normally JAY013. If you've done it right, I'll be wearing. My icon right now is me wearing a little red suit thing.
Little red suit thing.
Yeah, a little red suit thing. If you found that, you found me.
That's
And check out uspirates.org. That is
Join today.
uspirates.org. You can join today. We've got a little forum, support.uspirates.org.
I don't remember if
wanna
I've
sign
joined
up.
or not. Have I
You
joined?
might be, you
Give me a
might
look
not
back.
be. I don't know. I'm not actually in the IT at all, and
What?
we've gotten. Look, it's not my thing. You don't want
I'm
me
just
anywhere near the IT.
You don't have a list of every pirate on your phone like right now? You can't look.
Hey, we're an anti-authoritarian party. I don't need to keep a list and send the Stasi after anyone I think is acting out of line.
All right. Well, if I'm not officially joined, I will do it tonight,
Sounds good.
and you all
All
should
right.
too.
You should
Yes,
too.
follow.
Let's
All right,
break
guys.
the duopoly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I hope see you guys next week. Follow AJ. Follow Seth on Twitter. You guys already follow me.
And follow Jesse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse.
Yeah. But I'll see you guys next week. All right.
All right.
All
Everybody
right.
have a great night.
You too.